So you're thinking about moving to Lee Summit, Missouri. Well, hey, in this video, we are gonna look at the map of Lee Summit, show you how to get around, where you wanna go, where you don't wanna go, and how to get there. And if you stick around to the end, I'm gonna tell you some of my personal favorite things about Lee Summit. You don't wanna miss that. And we're gonna get started right now. Hey, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you want to know everything there is about living in Kansas City and places like Lee Summit, then click subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications, you know the drill, so you can be the first to know the current market here in the Kansas City area. My name is Zac Morton. My business partner Max Jones, the team, and I have been helping people move to Kansas City for over 20 years. We absolutely love it, but don't take my word for it. See what our clients have to say with over 600 5-star Google reviews from people just like you. So whether you're moving in 3 days, 3 months, 3 years, reach out to us by picking up the phone. You can shoot us a text, you can drop us an email, you can even schedule a Zoom. All that is in the information or in the description below. So like I said, we are looking at Lee Summit and the map today. So let's dive in. I always like to start kind of zoomed out so you can see Kansas City as a whole and draw a couple of lines in here. Grab my pencil. Just a lot of you guys know this. Some people that are just looking at this for the first time, there's a Kansas City, Kansas, and a Kansas City, Missouri. So I always like to start there. And that is starts dividing by this river, the Missouri River. And then when it hits right here in the middle, it just drops straight down on this dotted line. So we got Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri on this side, and Kansas on this side. So that's Kansas on this side. Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri. So that's our two cities. And that's really kind of a cool feature because we've got all kinds of things that you can benefits in either state and this and that. So opens up lots of different opportunities depending on what your goals are. First, I like to point out there is this awesome little highway system called the 435 Loop, which wraps all the way around the city, which makes travel real easy. I might mess that up. Makes it real easy to get around town, right? So if you don't want to go through the center where all the traffic is during rush hour, there is times 435 can get a little busy, especially during rush hour and especially down here on the south side of town. But for the most part, it's just an easy way. You're not getting off a bunch of crazy exits and doing this and merging and unmerging and stop and go. It's just an easy way to loop the whole city, get where you want to be. Airport's up in this direction of town, so if you travel a lot for work, it takes you right up towards the airport from either direction. So just always like to point that out. And then of course, Lee Summit is going to be right down here. It's on the southeast side of town, and that is just below I-70 is our major highway that runs all the way coast to coast, right through the city. And then for our X here, we've got 35 that runs through, and then I-29 that runs into downtown, turns into 49 and 71 and has all kinds of names, but goes north to south that way. So those are kind of your major highway systems. And then getting to Lee Summit from pretty much anywhere in the city, you've got all kinds of options. So even though it's on the southeast side in the corner, even getting to the airport, though, it might take you, 45 minutes, kind of depending on traffic. Really, in this city, we talk about it all the time. You can get just about anywhere you need to be in about 45 minutes from almost any place to any place, corner to corner, edge to edge, side to side. It is a really easy city to get around in. So, all right, I do urge you, if you are considering Lee Summit, there's a lot of great things about Lee Summit. We've done a full vlog tour. We're out walking around, going through some neighborhoods, so you can see actually what houses you might be able to afford at different price points and what those kind of look like, and what the streets look like, what the old downtown looks like, and all that. So it's a fun little tour. But I like to start this, kind of the fun stuff here. This is Lee Summit, has a lot of lakes. I kind of call it the little city of lakes here. And with that, there's lakes you can live on. There's lakes that are big recreation lakes that you can't live on, and you can just take your big horsepower boats, your ski boats and wave runners and all that too. So it's just got a lot of options. Here in the Midwest, we have all 4 seasons. We've done a couple things where we like to talk about the weather, but it gets hot in the summer, so it's great to have our lake access and things to do. Spring and fall are beautiful for golfing and hiking and biking and walking, and there's a lot of walking trails. And then the winter, it's just, you know, it's cold and you look for other things to do, but there's still a lot of nice days. On average, it's, you know, freezing at night and 40 during the day. So there's still lots of time to get out, enjoy some of that winter sun, take a stroll with several of the mini parks, and you can even golf all year round. So for the most part, golf courses are open. So there's always outdoors activities. You just gotta wait for a little bit of that snow to melt, which, you know, we've done some other, I think, our pros and cons on Kansas City, where we get into the weather a little bit, and with only a few snows a year that really accumulate to much, you really can be outside a lot more than most people think that are East Coast, West Coast, or coming from Texas or Chicago. So let's touch on that. So what should we dig into these lakes? So in our vlog tour, this is one of my favorites up here to the north. If you're a lake person, you want to live on the water, we've got Lakewood Lakes. And it's a really cool spot. It is a planned lake community development. So you're gonna have, as you can see up here to the north side, you're gonna have golf courses that are included in this community. There's a couple restaurants. There's one right there. There's gonna be tennis, sand volleyball, pavilions. There's the marina. Let me switch views here. Let me clean this up. Switch views back so you can really see the lakes and all the houses. So as you can see, it's just littered with houses. There is waterfront property, which is first tier, second tier, single family homes. There's also some townhomes that you can live in. And then as you can see right here, there's community docks. You have your boat there, the little marina, parking lot. So that kind of keeps the shoreline clean. There are some people that have some docks on here, but for the most part, keeps the shoreline clean. Everybody's zooming. This isn't a major, more of a no-wake lake, so it's not going to be out there just getting beat to death. It's smaller horsepowers. People, you can cruise around a little bit, but for the most part, it's not the big bad waves. So great spot with golf. I mean, they've just done a really good job up here, and you can see that is to the north of Lee Summit, right off I-70. And then as you get down, you've got some highway that cruises through here. Let's go back to this. And then you're going to get back into some more residential, some of the older stuff down here and down here. And then, so this is all, let me just do this again. I kind of like this. You can really see how the housing's all laid out. Big chunk of it. I'm just going to highlight it real quick. So we got the county outlines, this red dot, and you can just see that a majority of the housing is going to fall right in there. And then we've got up north around the lakes. And then as we zoom out, you can see that down here to the south, there are some subdivisions popping up. We talk about there's a couple more lake properties. We've got Longview Lake, but it's a little more sparse and sprawling down here in farmland. So there's still a lot of opportunities to get acreage property or land, or even go further out to the east. And find lots of opportunities out there if that's something that you're looking for. So that is Lee Summit, kind of how it's laid out and where it's located. Something I like to talk about with Lee Summit, we're about 65 square miles of area right here with a population density of about 100,000 people. So I know if you do our Overland Park blog, if you go check that out, it's just over here. That is about a population of about 220,000 with just a slightly bigger footprint. And I think you can see that too as you had all the, like right in here, we had a lot of that green space, farmland. So a majority of the housing is going to be here and then up in here. And then the school district will even go, you know, you've got all of Lee Summit. That's one thing Lee Summit's really known for is their school district, but then it even kind of goes out to the east outside of Lee Summit proper and covers all of that. But about 100,000 people living right in there. And then you've got the schools. So I guess while I'm talking about schools, let's talk about the schools. A lot of people, when they're moving to a neighborhood, especially with families and kids or a new city, schools is one of those major important things. I know it was. I think I've talked about this in some other videos. Born and raised, I've been in the Kansas City area for over 40 years and raised my kids here. But I did take a 3-year kind of adventure move where we went out west, and then my business partner Max, he kind of did the same thing, a few more years, but he went out to the East Coast So I kind of have a little bit of perspective about when I've also been through it recently too, where you move out, what's important, especially if you're raising a family, you've got 2 kids, and school districts are very important, right? So this is one of the things you'll notice about Lee Summit is A+ schools across the board. They've got 3 high schools, they've got 4 middle schools, and let me see, I've got their website pulled up here. I think it's 18 elementary schools, so I knew it was a bunch. And one of the things that I like to touch on that they boast is they have a 22.3 composite score for 2022, with Missouri's average was coming in right at 20.2, and the nation as a whole was coming in at 19.8. So well above the national average, and that just speaks to the school. So you do pay slightly more to live in the Lee Summit area. We talk about that all the time when you're talking about A+ schools and a great school system, that a lot of that money comes from the real estate taxes. So you do pay a little bit more. The property values are a little higher because that's where people that are raising families want to be. They want to take advantage of those amenities. So I like to look at this map. I know I pulled this up a lot, but I want to just touch on it right now while we are here and looking at a computer screen. It won't let me draw it, but right here is, I can draw this little blue box around it. This is the Lee Summit that we're talking about right now. And as you can see, it's got the US average home prices. It's right in there in that kind of sweet spot, just right at the average home price or just under, which I think is a great spot to be. You're not at the very top of the price point. You're not way at the bottom, but you're in that top, probably, what would you say, 80 percentile, which is just great value all around. So our average is right from the MLS as far as housing prices. For the last 12 months, we're coming in right at $400,000 for an average price, with a median home price of $370,000. So that keeps us just under that national average. Still super affordable, especially if you're coming from someplace where you already have equity, where you're selling a house, you got a big chunk to put down coming this way. So that's something to keep in mind too. Rates have been ticking up. But when you get out your mortgage calculator and you start crunching that number, just remember you're going to have a huge chunk of equity, most likely, that you're going to be putting down as your down payments. You're not typically going to be borrowing quite as much as you think when you're just running those rough numbers in your head. And oftentimes I have to remind people, like, yeah, you're not really borrowing $400,000, right? You're borrowing $300,000, or you're borrowing $250,000, or whatever the case may be, depending on where you're coming from. So just remember to keep that in mind. So really affordable house prices, A+ schools. It's not super packed, right? Only 100,000 people here in 65 square miles. So there is a lot of elbow room, which kind of leads to that sprawl. So a lot of times you'll hear is kind of a con about the Kansas City areas. It sprawls, there's just kind of subdivisions everywhere, but we're still a growing city. And 2022, since 2020, Lee Summit has had 9 to 10% growth. So people are really flocking into this town, where some of these other cities that we've talked about are seeing 3% or 5%. Lee Summit's kind of on a tear now. And one of the things they talk about on their school district, which I think is pretty interesting, is they have lower taxes, right? They're saying that their tax rate is lower than Hickman Mills, Fort Osage, Raytown, Blue Springs, North Kansas City, and Liberty schools, which are all great school systems, all nearby in the Kansas City area. But they're saying they have all this A+ schools, great housing, affordable housing, some newer construction, but yet they're still offering that, are boasting that lower tax rate. So something to consider. And I can attest to that even on the sales tax. We've got, let's see, sales tax is coming in right at 7.9 for Lee Summit. And the national average for sales tax is 7.3. I know depending on where you're coming from, we've got some people that don't pay sales tax at all, so it's a little bit of an adjustment. And maybe they're paying more property tax, but don't base your decision totally on that. You got to look at everything, because there's state income tax. When you weigh that against your federal and taxes, it typically kind of all shakes out in the wash, but it's just kind of what's important to you, and depending on what your business is. With Lee Summit, we've talked about the e-tax before, which is the earnings tax. If you live in Kansas City, Missouri, and or work in Kansas City, Missouri, there's this thing called an earnings tax, which helps to go to pay for the police, the road improvements, and trash, and all that gets a major revenue generator for the Kansas City. And I think a lot of that is there's a lot of the businesses, when we go, let's go back to the map here. A lot of the businesses are on the Missouri side. So this is kind of your downtown area and the Missouri side, and that's where a lot of the businesses are going to be. A lot of the skyscrapers, the downtowny businesses. So that tax, if you live in Kansas City or work in Kansas City, is a 1% earnings tax, which 1% of what you make that year goes. But if you live in Lee Summit and work in Lee Summit, you're not going to have that right out of the gate. So that's something nice about living in a city that's close to Kansas City. You've got all your amenities if you want to go down for the big shows or the arenas or the sports complex. It's still a hop and a skip and a jump. You're 20 minutes to downtown. Just right on in. We did say the airport's up. Oh, there we go, right here. So that's probably the biggest con, I would say, to living on the Lee Summit side is if you travel a lot and you're flying in and out a lot. Not that it's a horrible commute. You're looking at 45 minutes probably, worst case scenario. But if you're traveling once or twice a week, that can be an issue. Now I will say that Kansas City just got a brand new airport. Everything is state of the art. It's super cool. I imagine we're just going to keep getting more and more direct flights. They've also got a plan to grow that airport, or to grow this terminal, and just print another one right next to it. So plenty of room to expand, but we are really excited. We've had an old airport for a long time, and being a central hub where we are located in the country, just right smack in the middle, we are close to everywhere. It's quick to get to the coast. It's quick to get to Mexico. A lot of people will do that for their winter vacations. When you just can't take it anymore and you need a beach, we're just a 4-hour shot to an all-inclusive beach, toes in the water, feet in the sand, but ass in the water, toes in the sand. Not a worry in the world with a cold beer in your hand. That's all just 4 hours away. So love it, direct flight too. So, all right, touched on some lakes. All right, so when you are in Lee Summit, we've gotten our lake adventures in. We're all fed. Coming home from the lake for the weekend, we're looking for something to do. We need to get some food. One of my favorite spots in Lee Summit is right down here in the old downtown. I like to zoom in on this so you can just see it is that kind of that downtown square with the grid section. And then we'll go back to this view. It's, if you check out our vlog tour, I spend a lot of time there walking up and down the streets, smelling a lot of the smells. It was a beautiful day in all the restaurants. It was a Saturday, we're just going to town, but lots of food, lots of coffee, lots of drinks, lots of shopping. So just a great little downtown area. It's not the square. I kind of prefer more it's the 3rd Street is their main street, but I kind of prefer that over the square with the big courthouse in the middle, because you just have to walk around everything to get to it. So I do like these cities that are more of a main street where everything's kind of on the main drag, and then you can branch off and go down these other little side streets. So it's one of my favorite. It's pretty good size, this whole little shopping district. I don't know how many blocks that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe like 20, 28 blocks, somewhere like that. Fun stuff to do. And if we zoom in here, I'm sure more and more restaurants are going to pop up. Coffee, the 3rd Street Social, that's kind of one of the local favorites. Great place. That thing was pumping out some delicious smells while I was standing there, but that's a great spot on there on the weekends. It gets a little busy, so I recommend making some reservations, but good price, as you can see. And if you're going to be in town for any length of time and you're visiting the downtown area, definitely stop in there and grab a bite and a drink. We've got arcades. Let's see. Oh, the filling station barbecue. That's pretty cool. So obviously Kansas City, if you don't know this, you've been under a rock, but famous for our barbecue. So there's barbecue everywhere. All kinds of our famous barbecue shops in Lee Summit as well. but there is, I haven't even tried them all, right? I've been here for over 40 years. They're constantly popping up. It's just something you got to do. So we've got my spot that's my favorite spot for ribs. I've got my favorite spot for brisket. So you can have your favorite spot for each cut of meat. So I absolutely love that part. I can go on about food all day. You can tell I'm probably getting hungry. Adventure Center, there is the old, so you'll see this right here, running right through for a little history for you guys. Running right through the old downtown is the old Pacific Railroad, which is kind of cool. That's where it all started. There you have the old train depot right about, I think it's right in here, probably right by the bus station. And this is actually where the Lee Summit got its name. So a lot of people think it's General Lee, and it's not. There was a postman. He was also a doctor, but he was kind of the postman of the town who lived in this area that everybody knew, everybody liked and respected. He got murdered by one of those Kansas Jayhawkers, which did take our crime rate up just a notch. And in honor of that, everybody, like I said, loved him. He was kind of a staple to the town. They decided when they built the new train depot that they were going to name the town Lee Summit. This is one of the highest spots on the railroad between here and St. Louis. So they got together and they're like, yeah, we're going to name it Lee Summit. They went up there and they painted a sign on the side of the building that was spelled L-E-E apostrophe S, Summit. And he actually spelled his name L-E-A, so they misspelled it. He wasn't around to argue with them, so it kind of stuck, and here we are at Lee Summit. So there's a little history for you, and if you're downtown, you can go take a look at the train depot because it's right there by the tracks. Crime rate in Lee Summit, if that's important to you, which it probably should be, it's some of the lowest in the city. According to Niche.com, it's a C+, which I don't know if there's almost any little city in Kansas City that's above that. I'm not exactly sure how they rate it, but for the most part, it has some of the best crime ratings in the city. It was probably that murder from 1980 or 1880, whatever, that ticked that up just a little bit. So all areas in Lee Summit, I always say there's probably a place in every city where you don't want to go at night. I can't really think of anything in Lee Summit. I think I would feel comfortable walking around there at night, any day of the week, anytime, and not run into any trouble. Of course, if you go looking for trouble, you can probably find it, right? Anywhere. But that's my take on the crime rate there. And the numbers support it. Everything is far below. We've got a 78 out of 282 for the nation. And that's just, those are pretty good statistics if you ask me. So crime rate, excellent. We talked about prices, employers. So lots of job opportunities in most of these cities. We're gonna see that the school system is a major employer, and then also some hospital systems, and that's kind of the case here too. We've got Lee Summit, our 7 school district, which we kind of talked about with all the high schools and middle schools and elementary schools, which employs over 3,000 people. Homeland Security employs 3,000 people here in Lee Summit too. And then the next 2 are gonna be Truman Medical Center and St. Luke's East Hospital. So those are kind of your major employers. Other than that, we do have the metropolitan community colleges, which are all over the Kansas City area. There happens to be one in Lee Summit. There's some in the Northland. There's some down south. But that community college is there. It's a great college. In fact, when we get to fun things to do, they have a great kite event. A shout out to my buddy Sean, who owns Great American Kites. They go out there, they have this huge green space right by the lake. We fly in these kites once a year, and they're like 60-yard long kites, like half the length of a football field. They'll have the sky full of them, and then they sell the little kites for the kids, so they're out running around. It's just a great free event for the community, and the vendors that were there, they have food and drinks and all that stuff that you can buy, and all that money that is raised goes back into education and is donated to, it's just a fundraiser for the community colleges to spread back and put it back into the community. So that's a good thing. I just like to touch on that real quick, and it's an amazing event, a fun thing to do, and I'll be out there this year. We're doing a client event out there, so if you're in town, check it out. All right, shopping, right? Gotta get your shopping in. We went out, we had a good time. We went we went to the lake, had a great time at the lake. We were out on the boat, seeing friends, riding jet skis, rented a boat because we didn't have one, and you can rent boats on some of these lakes, so that was fun. And then after that, we're like, hey, let's go grab a bite to eat. So we cruised downtown, left the lake, cruised downtown, got a little bite to eat at the 3rd Street Social, walked up and down, shopped a little bit, but we're like, hey, this downtown shopping's just not doing it. I need my Home Depot, I need my big box store, and I want some dinner, and I kind of want to go 5-star, you know what I'm saying? We got to take it up a notch, so I want a big flashy restaurant. So that's what we've got over here. Where am I? We've got Summit Fair and Summit Woods. 2 large shopping areas. As you can see, this isn't even really filled in yet until you click on the other map. This is the newer side, but we'll zoom in on Summit Fair. You've got the mall, DSW, snacks, breakfast, tropical smoothie cafe, Jersey Mike's sub, all the stuff, JCPenney's. I mean, it just goes on. And then you hop over here to the newer section. We've got all your restaurants down here on the kind of the perimeter. And then you've got your you want to pick up the big screen TV for the big game. Then we got your Best Buy, all your office stuff, clothing, hamburgers, and there's Lowe's. All right, so you can pick up some stuff to work on your house, and this kind of just keeps spreading out that way. So great shopping area, brand new, still growing, so lots of new stuff there. And then maybe, hey, you want to catch the game too, while you're there. It's not too far away, just right here off I-70 we have the Gia Field Stadium right up here, which that's the Royals and Chiefs Stadium. So you're just a hop, skip, and a jump down I-70, 4 lanes of 70 mile an hour to 470, and you're right down here into Lee Summit. So nice little perk there. Also, I guess while we're talking about fun things and that great day of the lake and that great shopping that we took up and the great school districts, a lot of people that live in the Kansas City area and work here will have or travel to a Lake of the Ozarks. Have you seen that TV show, The Ozarks? I guess it's not really filmed in Missouri because there's some tax things, so let's film somewhere else. But it's about this Lake of the Ozarks, which is a lake right here. Takes usually about from the city center, you're 3 hours or so, depending on what kind of which way you go. Some people go south, some people go east, but a lot of people go there in the summer. It's a great little getaway. You can get away for a long weekend or a 3-day weekend. And down there you can have big boats, so it gets super choppy. Lots of coves, lots of places to go. These are this lake, like a lot of the lakes here in the Midwest, are dammed up rivers, so they just kind of snake and meander and miles and miles and miles. I don't know how long it is, but maybe 100 miles. It wouldn't surprise me if it's that long, and has lots of different branches, but a lot of people go there. So one of the perks, I think, to live in a Lee Summit, especially if you're a lake guy that likes to go south to the lakes or camping, there's Truman down here. There's a lot of other lakes. Some you can live on, which is Lake of the Ozarks. Truman you can't live on. It's a Corps of Engineers, so it's going to be more of a fishing, skiing lake, but no houses, a lot less traffic. So there's busy lakes, there's calm lakes. Lake of the Ozarks is going to have all your restaurants and bars and pools and all that. You just pull right up in your boat to the marina, walk up the steps, and you're right there at a nice restaurant atmosphere, grabbing a beer, watching the kids swim at the pool. So it's a cool lake. If you're in town for the summer, renting and still checking it out, this is definitely a place you're going to want to go check out in the summertime. That's where everybody goes. Everybody talks about it. So now you know. So that's one of the things about living on Lee Summit. You already got a 45-minute jump start from someone like me that lives up here. You get a 45-minute jump start on getting to the lake. So if you plan on going to the lake more than you plan on hopping on an airplane, great side of town to live on. Also, if you are in the military, we've got a couple of bases. You can check out our vlog on Leavenworth if you are in the military, but Leavenworth right there is a military base. Lee Summit. So here we are, Lee Summit is what we're talking about right now. Whiteman Air Force Base. If you're in the Guard or the Air Force, there's a lot of people that'll live at Whiteman, and kind of the next biggest town close to Kansas City is going to be Lee Summit. So you'll see a lot of military living there. And then also Warrensburg is a kind of a college town that's out in the country. It's it's expanding, growing too, but there'll be a lot of people move there. But if that's it, that is I think that's probably a 35-40 minute drive to the Air Force Base there. Same to this one. and you're just, you're close to that and anything you need to do east. So if you are in the military or think you're gonna be, or anything to do with Whiteman Air Force Base, or Warrensburg has UCM University, and we have Lawrence, home of the Jayhawks over here. So if you have kids that might be going to one of those places and you wanna live in-state for in-state tuition, maybe that's something to think about too. All right, so I told you, let's see what we touched on. Oh, things to do. Let's go to some things to do, and this is one of my favorite things. I'm always, every time I move to a place, my wife's got the school thing figured out and locked down. There's also, while we're talking about school, there's a lot of private school options too. That's the case with almost anywhere in Kansas City, but I'm always concerned with, what am I gonna do for fun? I wanna get outside, I wanna enjoy things, I wanna enjoy the outdoors life, so, or I enjoy being outdoors, so what can I do outside, right? So yeah, I guess right when I hold on Lee Summit, it shows a picture of baseball fields and sports complexes for kids. So sports in Kansas City, baseball is off the hook. Little League baseball, softball, and soccer, especially girls soccer, is just going crazy around here. I've noticed over the last 10-15 years, sports are big here, and you will travel to all the little local cities to compete, depending on which school districts you're in. It's a lot of fun. You'll get to see them all, so it's good if you want to watch some of our other videos about Liberty or Parkville or whatever. You can kind of learn about these towns before you go compete and play some sports there. Maybe you'll learn some fun things to do. But yeah, lots of sports opportunities for the kids. There is parks. There is the Rock Island Trail. Let me see if I can pull that up and see if it'll highlight it. All right, there's the Rock Island Trailhead, which is kind of cool about this is it goes right to the stadium, and then can't really tell on this map. Here's the lakes. We've got Lee Summit kind of wraps right through here, but there's lots of parks that you can go to that'll get you to this trailhead. And this is like a crushed gravel. In some places it's cement. It's got the tower of trees over it. Just a nice long trail that'll actually take you places, and you can actually get to the stadiums if you're close enough, or you want to get some exercise, walk to the game to either see a Royals game or a Chiefs game, and that's kind of cool. And eventually, this trail is going to tie into the KD Trail, which goes all the way across the state. So it's over 400 miles. Kind of follows the Missouri River, right next to the old railroad track. So that's kind of a cool thing too. If that is something you're into, you can camp on that. There's wineries along the way. You can take the Amtrak train out. I've done that with the kids where we went. You can put your bike on the train, so you can go out, bike like 30 miles with the kids, hit a couple restaurants or a winery, spend the night somewhere. There's Herman. There's all kinds of fun things to do out here off I-70, little German town. Try out some German beers and some brats, get back on the train, work your way back. So there is some fun stuff to do. We don't really have a tram system that runs through the Kansas City metro area that's really efficient. It's more of a bus system. But that is an old, the old Amtrak train that does run out along I-70 that offers some fun things to do. It still takes probably more time than driving, but it's fun. It's worth doing. I'd do it again. All right, let's get back to going off on tangents here. Let's see, Rock Island Trailhead. We've got golf downtown, in the downtown area, just things I missed. They've got the Fourth Fridays, where every fourth Friday during the summer months, they kind of have an art fair that's out in the street down there. Oktoberfest, still have, they shut the downtowns. A lot of these little towns in Kansas City, or these little cities, Lee Summit, they'll shut the downtowns down for a lot of major holidays, do parades. St. Patty's Day, of course, is a big one. Oktoberfest, and pretty much any reason to have a parade or a party. They're gonna hit all those major holidays, as well as live music events. I think when I typed in a search for live music in Lee Summit when we were doing the vlog, like 10 or 12 places came up that have live music at different days and different times. Outdoor concerts, farmers markets, stuff like that. So a lot of cool things, kind of like just what you expect right there in the middle of Lee Summit. As I told you in the beginning, my favorite thing about Lee Summit, what I want to tell you about, is this little thing right here called, not little, the James A. Reed Memorial Wildlife Area, Conservation Area. This has over 3,000 acres of conservation land. There's over 12 lakes and ponds out here. Most of them are stocked with like largemouth bass, catfish, bluegill, crappie. I know that in the winter, several of them will be stocked with trout. Get out the old fly rod and catch some rainbows. So just a great spot. There's also some areas that you can hunt out there too. I'm not sure exactly where they're at, but with that, there's an archery range, as you can see. Let me clean that up and zoom in even more. There's walking trails. Just a great spot. If you're outdoorsy, just want to get away when you're out here, it's quiet, surrounded by trees, they're blocking out all the road noise. And just a nice, relaxing area to get out, find your favorite pond. If this one's busy, hey, we'll go over to this one. You can see some walking trails. And let me see if I can pull this map up too. Sometimes this will give you another idea of what's going on. That's probably more the hunting ground kind of stuff. You're looking for squirrels or rabbits. I'm not sure what people hunt these days. Lakes, trails, just all kinds of nice little parky stuff. And there'll be trails like around these lakes too. This is just showing you the roads, but 3,000 acres, a lot of land just for you, all protected, natural, and full of, you can see they farm some of these areas, and that's going to put a lot of food out there that's going to be, attract the wildlife. Really, here you don't have to worry about too much wildlife killing you, depending on where you might be coming from, if you've got bears or elk or anything like that. So we've got some of our big game. We do have white-tailed deer. So you'll see deer out there. You'll see turkeys out there. But really there's not much in Kansas City. We do have in the state of Missouri rattlesnakes. There's rattlesnakes and copperheads. I've never seen a rattlesnake here in my life. I've been outside as much as I can. Have seen a copperhead, never been bitten by a snake. Got a couple poisonous spiders, the brown recluse, which they call it a recluse because it hides from everybody, so that's not really an issue. But I'd say the biggest thing you need to look out for when you're hanging outside out in the woods in these areas is, and I know we're doing a map video, and here I am talking about things I like to do, but it's just like the poison ivy. We have poison ivy, poison oak. After you get it once, you'll know what it looks like, and you'll never probably get it again, or at least not knowingly walk through it. And then ticks, and that's probably the major ones. So it's good to go out in the woods in the fall, kind of after a major freeze, when all the little creepy crawly critters are kind of, either hibernating or dead. And then early in the spring, before everything really, all the undergrowth really kicks up, and it's really, I don't know what to say, just really full and bushy and hard to get through. But a lot of these places, like even out here at the park, they'll have all these mowed down trails. It'll be real nice to get around. But if you're out hunting, mushroom hunting, or out fishing, trying to get to a spot, perfect little spot on the lake that nobody's gotten to, and you're going through shoulder high grass and pushing through, that's some of the stuff I try to stay away from, because I like to fish, but I like not picking ticks off of me more than I like to fish, if that makes sense, depending on the season. Archery range down here. So that's one of the things that I think really kind of sets Lee Summit apart, is it's got that, it's got the lakes, it's got a great cost of living, it's got A+ schools. Really the only con for me is that it's, my life happens up here for the most part. It's 45 minutes away, and it's a little further from the airport. But other than that, if you weren't born and raised and all your people aren't up here, even if they were, what the heck, it's not that far away, right? I can't really think of too many negatives about Lee Summit. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. If you have any questions or comments, always put them in the description below. If you live here, think I missed something in Lee Summit that you think is awesome and you want to tout about, throw it in there. It's just going to help other people find that. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, can you please give it a thumbs up? It helps other people find the video. Appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff, so you'll be the next to know what's going on. And thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found this useful. We'll see you next time.